Hello everybody and welcome back to the show. So today we are doing something exciting. I am reacting to some video snippets here on YouTube and you will get my raw, unfiltered reaction. And at the end of the day, we're all friends here. I hope I can give you a very balanced view of all the things that are being said on those videos. And with no further ado, let's get started.
Puffed cereal, puffed rice cakes. There was this chemist and he worked for Quaker Oats. Okay. They fired him because he noticed when they did the study on rats with puffed cereal, they would die. So I set up this experiment in my basement. I had 4 separate cages. Okay. In the first group of mice, I fed them mice food. The second group of mice or rats, I fed whole wheat bread. Okay. Third group, I fed white bread. And the fourth group, I fed puffed cereal. In one of the cages of rats, I noticed that the eyes started turning bright red and started bulging out. And these mice were actually dying prematurely. And this is after a week and a half to 2 weeks. Okay. Now take a wild guess what group you think this was. Most of you are thinking it's the white bread, right? No. Something in the puffed cereal created the eyes to turn bright red, and it was literally bulging out and it was killing the mice.
Where do we start? I love the graphics. They're pretty neat, right? That's a pretty neat, like, little rat that gets like a red eye bulb, right? Well, let's point out first, the good things about this is that he's talking about convenience foods, right? Like rice puffs. And if you over consume on those, right, you're eating a lot of carbohydrates. I don't know if I wouldn't put that onto the list of the 7 worst foods you can eat. I think there's nothing wrong with rice puffs, really, if you don't eat like a sack of it, right? But, I would like to address the elephant in the room here, which is his experiments on rats, right? So you might think that's totally fine. You can just take a bunch of rats and just do like an experiment in your basement. But you are very far from the truth and you are very wrong. Let's just go through the motions and see what's wrong with this. Well, first of all, there's the Animal Welfare Act, and everyone who is a scientist works on living things, like I do work on plants in my science world, right? But other scientists works on animals, right? So they're very aware with the Animal Welfare Act. There are several amendments to the act, whatever. That act regulates mostly how animals are used, among other things, also for scientific experiments, right? You cannot just go get a bunch of rats from your basement and put them into cages and do an experiment on them. That's actually highly illegal. There are several other regulations. States have their own regulations. There's public health service policy on human care and use of laboratory animals that's regulated on a federal level. Violations to those laws can result in really high fines, even in revocations of licenses, for example. He's a licensed doctor. And if it's really bad, also in imprisonment, right? He uses his experiment to create this food fear about rice puffs, out of all things, like as if that would be a toxin that you could eat, right? So that's my big issue I have with Dr. Berg, is like he's creating this food fear. It is a disservice to the community. If he really would have been serious about conducting an experiment that shows to the world, to everyone, to his viewers, to whoever he wants to show it, that rice puffs are causing death, which is what he implies with this, he would have repeated the study, first of all, like either in time or in space or both. Like that's like just normal scientific practice, right? And then he would have also tried to publish his results and the outcome, and he would have had the vets inspecting his basement. He would have followed AWA and PHS regulations and whatever regulations are in Virginia, which is where he apparently lives, right? I haven't seen any other study anywhere in the world that has shown that rice puffs are deadly. I doubt he really did this. I think he only says this to get your attention. That's really all this is about. This is a prime example for how food fear is created by pseudoscience. People, you can eat rice puffs. You're not going to die from it, period. That's just all I have to say about this.
Much of what we used to think about metabolism is actually not correct. So I'm going to first throw out there some commonly held beliefs about metabolism. Common belief number 1, the metabolism that we have is really the result of some random process where Your sister might actually have a fast metabolism, be skinny as a stick and can eat anything. And you might actually have a slower metabolism and been struggling with food your whole life. I mean, we've all heard that or maybe experienced that. And that is a commonly held belief. The truth is, based on recent research that came out just a few years ago, everyone is born with the same metabolism. We're all born with the same metabolism, not different metabolism. What happens is that our metabolism evolves and takes on different paths as we get older due to the experiences, the exposures, and the behaviors that actually happen after we're born.
Metabolism is really the sum of all chemical reactions that occur in your body, right? And the impact of food on our parts of our metabolism, at least, is definitely huge. So in that sense, he's not wrong. A big portion of our metabolism is the breakdown of food, the generation of energy. It also includes things like repairing DNA or building cell membranes, like every chemical reaction that happens in our body, which is like tons, millions of chemical reactions every day happening in our body, are part of our metabolism. It's very, very complex how metabolism or chemical reactions are regulated, but a lot of that has had to do with our genetic makeup. I would say the positive side of this video is that he's right about the experiences that we have, and especially the food that can impact your metabolism, your gut microbiome, but also can directly impact your hormone balances, your cell membrane, your cell functions in your body. So your individual genetics do play a large role in how your metabolism works, right? The best example for those are diseases, right? Diabetes would be a great example. For example, differences in genes that diabetes 1 patients, for example, have can impact your metabolism quite a lot, right? So there are other diseases like that can directly impact your metabolism. It's not true that everyone comes to the world has the same genetic base for their metabolism. What is true is that you can do a lot about a healthy metabolism by eating correctly and by living a healthy lifestyle. All right, let's move on to the next video.
That advisory committee on immunization practices that makes recommendations. It's a group of scientists that looks at reams of data, and that's where our recommendations come from, not from an individual.
But you're leading
It's
all of
time,
those
you know,
agencies.
one of the big mistakes that you and many other of your media colleagues made during COVID is to try to convince the American people that they should trust the experts. Trusting the experts is not a feature of science. It's not a feature of democracy. It's a feature of religion and totalitarianism. What we should do is trust the science. And we are going to do the science, and the science is going to be replicable, and it's going to be gold standard so that parents can make their own choices about what is best for their family and their health.
Okay. All right. Well, why do we have to watch RFK Jr.? So first of all, I'm not a medical doctor, right? I'm a plant scientist, right? That's a very different thing. But I do understand science. Like an RFK Jr. is clearly not understanding science. But like, let's take a step back, right? So I think what's happening in the United States right now is the accumulation of decades of powerful people and rich 1%, right? Trying to squeeze every single dollar out of us normal people, right? I think that's what's happening in combination with some fascist Nazi thugs rounding up and kidnapping innocent people all over the United States. That's happening at this point of time in the United States, right? If you like to see a mother being deported, or like a pregnant woman being kidnapped, right? Or like a child with cancer being fucking deported, right? Or, innocent people who have honest and very hardworking jobs being chased and their faces smashed into the ground and treated in like the most inhumane ways, then I'm sorry, but you missed the train. You're not on our team, right? Like, that's not American. That's the America of the past and not of this time, right? That's where I see RFK Jr. Like, first and foremost, I see him as someone who decided to attach himself to that kind of movement. And that, to me, screams already, oh, you're gonna have to be careful with this guy. RFK Jr. is also an example of why we are where we are. He's cherry-picking studies or cherry-picking conspiracy theories. He's saying you shouldn't trust the experts, but you should trust the science. But who is doing the science? Is he doing the science? He's not a scientist. We are doing the science. We are the scientists. We are the experts. It's just a semantic question at this point of time. He likes to follow unfounded conspiracy theories rather than scientific evidence. If you want to really follow the science, you can't ignore all the evidence that speaks against what you believe. And then there's the other point. He wants to do all the science, the golden standards, whatever that is, right? Like, you know, if you look at science, repeated experiments, this is what he's talking about here. They're great, but it's just one experiment. Like, how do you know if this represents really what everyone else finds out too, right? As soon as you work with organisms, no matter if it's a plant or an animal or human, right, you get all kinds of answers because every organism is a little bit different, right? So to really understand where the main body of knowledge goes, where the main evidence goes, repeated experiments are great, but they're not a golden standard. They're building the evidence that you then can analyze with, for example, meta-analysis, right? And then he's also part of a government that slashes science funding. So I don't know how he wants to do all the science if there's no grants for us to apply for, right? Or if there's less money for us to apply for, then how does he want us to do all the science? He has good ideas, like with the food industry and the pharma industry. We should be able to afford healthy food for our kids and in schools, and we should be able to afford healthcare for everyone. We're the richest country on the planet, right? I don't understand why this is not happening here. It happens in any other country. But his approach is not going to get us there. All right, let's move on.
The Mediterranean diet. The Mediterranean. If you eat the Mediterranean diet, it reduces heart disease, other chronic ailments, so people seem to live longer. Now, the diet emphasizes whole, minimally processed foods and a balance of essential nutrients, like the kinds you get in fresh fruit. The primary source of fat is extra virgin olive oil, which of course is high in flexible monounsaturated fats. Not those rigid saturated fats that don't move, like animal fats have. You have walnuts and flax seeds. They have healthy fats too, like omega-3s. Those reduce inflammatory issues. And then you got the fresh fruits and vegetables. They're rich in antioxidants and vitamins and fiber, all the good things that keep your blood sugar levels stable. Herbs and spices like basil and oregano, my favorite garlic, add flavor to dishes without the need for excessive salt. So guess what? Your blood pressure comes down. And most importantly, meals are enjoyed by family and friends together. That promotes social interaction, it reduces stress, so you actually want to live longer. So you do.
Wow, Dr. Oz is hanging out in the Mediterranean while shit goes down here in the United States. Well, good for him, right? Good for him. This was actually not too bad of a video. I think he really enjoys his new life, like shipping around the world, you know, and being somewhere, I don't know, it looked like Portugal to me, right? Yeah, so he's pretty right. The Mediterranean diet is one of the healthiest diets in the world. He's not completely right on the fat sources. Mediterranean diet also contains red meats and white meats quite a bit too, and fish, which can also be a source of fats. But what it really is like a very balanced diet with a lot of whole foods. That's really what the Mediterranean diet is, and olive oil plays an extremely important role. Is a very healthy oil. He makes a really good point about the social interactions, right? That's extremely important. The food is really a connector between cultures. It can be, also between people. So don't underestimate that issue as well. And overall, not a bad video. Certainly, if people would try to eat more Mediterranean diet-style foods, right? Whole foods, stuff that we promote in our book. Hey, I said it. Our book, the stuff we promote in our book. Then the world would be a better place. Okay, let's move on to the next video. What do we have here?
What's dirtier, your hands or this? These are the foods that have high levels of pesticides. Strawberries, spinach, grapes, raisins, kale, nectarines, peaches, cherries, pears, and tomatoes. The foods that have the least amount of pesticides: avocados, cabbage, onions, asparagus, eggplant, cauliflower, and broccoli. The best way to avoid pesticides is just to buy organic foods.
Okay, Dr. Berg again. Those are all very healthy foods, and you should eat them as much as possible, you know? The bad thing here is that this is, again, engaging in food fear. And that's like, Dr. Berg likes to do this for some reason, right? He always wants to put everything in good and bad categories. What is true is that you do find more pesticide residues on non-organic grown fresh fruit and vegetables than you do on organically grown, right? That is true. More, like more often, you know? What is not true is that you don't find them in organic foods. There are plenty of studies that show that there are also pesticide residues on organic foods, right? There are different pesticides. Depends. Sometimes there's a like blowover from farms that growing conventionally, right? But you find copper, especially copper residues are pretty high on organic foods. So, not 100% true. If you can afford it, you can buy organic, right? But what also is not true is that you are going to die if you eat a non-organic blueberry or non-organic tomato. What you should do, though, every time is wash your fruit and vegetables. And I really don't like that this is never mentioned anywhere in any video. I guess it's not sexy enough to do it. But what you really need to do is you need to wash your produce, because there's a much bigger threat than the pesticides that you find on your produce is the foodborne illnesses, right? Like foodborne illnesses are a big issue on fresh produce, and you need to wash your stuff, right? So, it sounds weird. We need to wash your stuff. You need to wash your fruit and vegetables. That is that. Those are my thoughts. Let's move on to the next one.
What is the sugar diet, and is it healthy?
The sugar diet, it is what it sounds. You're primarily eating sugar throughout the day.
It's a high-carb, low-fat diet, but the new trend is to moderate the protein.
You're not only going to keep the fats low, you're also going to keep the protein more modest.
But here's the number one concern with the sugar diet. Be careful about the type of carbs you eat.
Literally, straight table sugar is fine. You can drink some pop, Sour Patch Kids, and jelly beans.
Don't do this. Favor healthy sources of carbohydrates, lentils, fruit, oatmeal. Avoid junky carbs like candy or soda.
It might not be the best option, but I'm still losing weight doing that, and that's ultimately what matters.
Losing excess weight is good, but there's a lot more to health than weight loss. We can look really fit and have shredded abs and be unhealthy. We want to look good on the outside and on the inside.
I love this guy. I watch his videos all the time. He's spot on, right? You can eat carbohydrates. It's a high carbohydrate, low protein, low fat diet. I agree that you shouldn't eat any like of the refined sugars or any of the junk foods, right? That's not healthy at all. That will lead to a lot of diseases. Eat healthy carbohydrates. Nothing is wrong with that. Steel cut oats are very good, right? Any fruit or vegetables are good, or like any beans or lentils. Tubers, right? Like those are good, healthy carbohydrate sources. There's a lot of fiber in it. They have like long chained carbohydrates. They're embedded in the fiber matrix. Those are great foods for you. And then he makes a very good point here that weight loss is not everything. Weight loss is certainly important if you are overweight. And I made another video about this last week, right? If you're at 50% or 30% body fat and you're a man, or like 60 to 40 and you're a woman, then yeah, every pound counts, right? But it becomes more important to have a healthy diet. And there's like eating all this sugar, you might lose weight on that, but you might cause a lot of disease that you don't want to have later on. So, very good video. I like this. This is a great video, and I think this was the last one, right? Yeah, okay. This is a good video to end, and I hope you learned something. It was a lot of fun to react to those videos, and if you like this, please hit the like button and subscribe to my channel. Goes a very, very long way, and thank you for everyone who has subscribed. I love you guys. You are awesome. And I see you next week. I'm out. See you then.